Showtime! The Capital G show starts right now.
What's up YouTube? Capital G here, giving you guys a banlist wishlist video. Basically, this is just my opinions on what should happen with the July 14th banlist, and I personally feel like this format was absolutely fantastic. I liked it a lot. I felt like outside of Soul Charge, which kind of threw a kink in things, I felt like we got a much slower, more defensive format. You don't really see a lot of OTKs. I mean, even with Soul Charge, you couldn't attack, so at least, you know, they did have some foresight with that, even though I still think it is personally a broken card. This is a format where it's much slower, you know. I mean, granted, you still see... I see everything is kind of derived from, like, how many +1s you can get. Like, everything, card advantage is... It's basically, like, really important. It's imperative again in the game, and I like that. You know, I feel like not a lot of decks can consistently OTK, and when's the last time you saw two players actually setting monsters and they weren't running, you know, the same deck or something? Like, that never happens. You know, for a long time it was like maybe Geargiarmor and Gravekeepers, but the time frame between those two decks being tier 1 was like forever, you know, and Plant Synchro before then, and now it's like you've got so many good decks that can set, Hat can set monsters, Geargiarmor, you know, Worms, I don't know, I feel like it's an element of the game that it's been lost for forever, and I feel like it's a good sign. So, as far as ban cards go, I don't have anything here. That might come as a surprise, as I just said that, you know, I believe Soul Charge is broken. I do believe, limited to one, I have Soul Charge, Instant Fusion, Geargiarmor, and Wind Up Carrier Zenmaity. Alright, so I briefly spoke on Soul Charge. I feel like there are some adequate ways to counter it. Like, even some of the higher tier decks are already, you know, finding good ways to counter it. Stuff like needle sailing, where people just overextend. And a lot of times, if you do go like too far with Soul Charge, you start calling 4 and 5, and you get hit with a needle sailing, and none of your monsters are floaters. You kind of like put yourself in a situation where two monsters can pretty much just game you out. So I do feel like I'm not gonna ever say Soul Charge is a balanced card, because it's not. But I feel like one, I can really live with one copy of Soul Charge. Instant Fusion, this is one of those cards that's probably going to get overlooked, even without Noden coming out, which is going to completely break this card. I just feel like all Instant Fusion is, it's a catalyst for decks that want to explode in OTK, mainly Madolche and Infernity, which essentially it's the same exact deck. You know, I feel like all it does is it's just a generic combo inhibitor. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I summon my, you know, Anjelly. Oh, okay, you effect Veiler. Alright, well, activate Instant Fusion, and then, you know, go into NXT. You know, and like, that's all it's ever useful for. Like, what practical reasons or what practical purposes do you have for Instant Fusion? Like, you'd never just summon a fusion monster that can't attack and can't use its effect and dies during the end phase. Like, that wouldn't make any sense. Or, no, it can use its effect, but can't attack and, you know, dies during the end phase. Like, there's no practical purpose for this card. Geargiarmor, I feel like, I mean, Geargiarmor has to go to 1. And honestly, a lot of people say, no, Capital G will kill Gear. No, they won't. Geargiarmor will not die because Geargiarmor goes to 1. For starters, they have 3 ways to get to the card in Geargiarmor Arsenal. If it dies, they already played 3 MK2s, so it's like you can get it back. You can search it with the XC, so it's like you have so many ways to get to this card. But it's just too damn good. Like, you open with Geargiarmor set, and it's like, okay, practically no level 4 or lower monster can attack over it. And even if you do attack over it, they still get a 1-for-1 anyway. If you attack into it and you know, you can't kill it, then, I mean, your opponent goes +1. They reflip it during their turn. They go +2. Game's basically over. Alright, so Wind Up Carrier Zenmaity, I feel like it's time. I mean, there's no Shockmaster, Magician, Shark. I think they're both limited. Wind-ups haven't done anything relevant in, I don't know, close to, what, 2 years now? I feel like, you know, Zenmaity is in the OCG, and wind-ups aren't even close to doing anything. You know, I feel like, you know, the card stats are always going to be mediocre. 15-15, that's not very good. You know, we play so many breakthrough skills and Phoenix Chains and Maxis. I don't even think that Wind-up would even be close to tier 1 with this card available. I feel like it's their go-to card. I think it needs to come back. Semi-limited, I have Fire Hand, Ice Hand, Dragon's Ravine, Madolche, Anjelly, and Artifact Sanctum. So Fire and Ice Hand is pretty evident, I mean, or it's pretty self-explanatory. There is literally no reason why a Reborn Tengu should be at 2 and these cards are at 3. They cause way too much destruction. I've seen too many games that have been decided on these cards, and I'm not even talking about when your opponent goes for a pop on a face down monster and it happens to be a hand and they're fucked. I'm talking about the obvious obligatory, your opponent summons Ice Hand and crashes, you know, fucking 5 monsters into one of yours, takes maybe about 1200 damage and clears your entire board for their normal summon and still ends up with a monster. It's like, that's not fair, you know what I mean? Dragon's Ravine, I don't think that this card should be banned. I don't even understand why. I mean, yeah, a couple of formats ago, dragons were like off the fucking chain. You still had Super Rejuve. You still had, you know, multiple dragons at 2. With Dragon's Ravine at 2, I don't know if it could go to 3. I think that 2 would be a good start. I just don't see how dragons would be broken. Like, you know, you're not guaranteed to have the, like, if you have the dragon rulers in hand and you discard them for like other Dragoonity cards, I get how that could be really good, but the problem is Dragoonities have no hope of ever being competitive without this card. And I feel like with the dragons being at 1, they're pretty much in check because you have to draw them first. Madolche Anjelly. Okay, so I wanted to put this card at 1 because the Sign Enigma kind of pointed it out. This card doesn't work. It doesn't work anything like other Madolches. Like, I'm not a Madolche expert, but every single Madolche in the deck, to my knowledge, like once it dies, it tags back into the deck. This guy contribute itself and then get another monster, which is 90% of the time usually Hoot Cake, and then you just go the fuck off. The problem that I really have with Hoot Cake is, or that I have with Anjelly is, let's say you actually have a legitimate counter like Max C. Okay, your opponent's just like, alright, well, I'll just get Hoot Cake in defense mode, and then you can't kill it for battle. Like, you can't kill it with battle. That's ridiculous. Like, Anjelly was already strong enough. Her effect was already good enough. Why did they have to give protection for the monster that it brings out? Like, it didn't make any sense at all. And then the last card, Artifact Sanctum. This card can't be at 3 anymore. It's too strong. Like, there aren't enough adequate ways of dealing with it. Like, I guess the best way of dealing with this would be to deal with the monster that it summons with, like, Breakthrough Skill or Trap Trick's Nightmare. But it's like, alright, if you blow it up when it's face down, okay, well, then you lose a card. You go neg 1. And if your opponent activates it during your turn and they bring out a Martech, they blow something on your field, so they go +1 either way. Like, there's basically no way outside of actually, you know, getting rid of the artifact that they summoned that they don't go +1 with this card. You know, and I really just didn't like the, if it gets blown up, then you get to blow up a card on your opponent's turn. Like, I think that put it way too over the top. And then I have no longer limited. I've got Mirror Force and Gladiator Beast, Bestiari. Bestiari, why is this card still limited? it literally makes no sense why Bestiari. I forget where it's at on the OCG, but it should not be limited. I realistically couldn't see Glads coming to tier 1 because they're one of those decks where they don't have a lot of ways to inherently special summon, and they're so dependent on their normal summon. And Mirror Force, like, who plays Mirror Force? Like, Mirror Force is so much worse than Dimensional Prison, not just because of the hands, but because of things like Zenmaines and just a ton of other monsters, Draco Sack, that you just don't want to try and destroy. You know, yes, I give the upside of Mirror Force is much higher than Dimensional Prison, but it's just not a reliable card in my opinion, especially while the hands are still a thing, at least at 2 copies. I don't think Mirror Force is really going to be viable. So let me know what you guys think. I think that this is one of the lists where they don't really need an overhaul at all. All they need to do is just kind of do a little bit of tweaking here or there. Look towards the future. Understand that cards like Instant Fusion are going to become incredible if you don't check them now. They're just going to lead to extreme derpiness. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe there's some cards that I missed. Thank you for watching, as always. Subscribing makes life happy.